It's Tuesday, January 23rd, 1996, and this is Dateline NBC. Tonight.
What these men are arguing over could be the most explosive issue in America today. Has America gone too far to help women and blacks? These men think the answer is yes.
I don't think that you're finding racial discrimination as widespread as some people claim. Where's the proof?
I need proof to you that blacks are being discriminated against.
Josh Mankiewicz looks at two white men who want to reverse affirmative action. Is there more to the story? Plus, falling in love. Dateline's Picture of the Week.
Dateline with Jane Pauley and Stone Phillips, plus Tom Brokaw, Katie Couric, Bryant Gumbel, and Maria Shriver. Dateline continues after this brief message.
Of the 12 jurors deciding the case, he decided on her.
I know who you are when you wake up.
She knows he's watching. She knows he's waiting.
All you have to do is say not guilty.
Now,
Who will protect you?
justice is in the hands of the juror.
Stay out of our lives.
Demi Moore, Alec Baldwin, from the chilling bestseller, The Juror, rated R, at theaters February 2nd.
Last time I was in the store, I counted about 17 different kinds of pain relievers. I'll let other people shop around. When I'm in pain, I go right for what I know will work. Motrin IB.
Motrin IB. The pain stops here.
After 90 years, there's one thing we at Kellogg never tire of. Bringing the best to you each morning. So in that tradition, please accept these collectible limited edition classic trucks and character bowls in appreciation of all the mornings we've shared together. Yours free.
Kellogg's best to you.
Last year, nearly 8 million people had their lives turned upside down by unemployment. Hate to say it, but that's life. We're the first company that allows unemployed clients greater access to their annuity without a penalty. And that can help a lot until things get straightened out. That's New York Life, the company you keep.
Now, to each man who shaves, there's an edge all his own. Only Edge Gel has 8 custom formulas, from tough beards to sensitive skin, for a close, comfortable shave. Ultimate closeness, ultimate comfort. That's the Edge.
Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, et ça me fait quelque chose.
The new international selections from the new Weight Watchers. Form a healthy relationship with pleasure.
From Studio 3B in New York, here is Jane Pauley.
Good evening. Do you feel that everyone is after your job and they just might have an unfair advantage? That people can criticize you and it's okay? Are you a white American male? In California, 2 men have taken up the cause of the beleaguered species. They've written a ballot proposal that, if passed in November, would change affirmative action in California's state hiring and education admissions. But is life really so unfair for you guys? Here's Josh Mankiewicz.
You needed that job, and you were the best qualified. But they had to give it to a minority because of a racial quota. Is that really fair?
It's been the focus of campaign commercials.
Affirmative action is injustice, just as the original discrimination it desires to reverse.
This year, it's back on the front page of American politics. It's affirmative action, among the most divisive issues in America.
You try to imply that it was a preference for black people, and that was a lie.
Leading Republicans have been grabbing headlines and airtime bashing affirmative action. But this national debate started with these 2 political unknowns from Northern California. Glenn Custard, an anthropology professor, and Tom Wood, a philosopher by training.
What the California Civil Rights Initiative will do is simply extend
civil rights protections to absolutely everybody in the population.
Wood and Custard wrote the California Civil Rights Initiative, and their goal, embraced by millions of Americans, is to end affirmative action as we know it. Much of affirmative action, they say, simply amounts to preferences for women and minorities and reverse discrimination against white men.
As a matter of simple logic, one cannot prefer an individual on the basis of race, sex, or ethnicity without discriminating against someone else on that basis.
I prefer to go back to Martin Luther King.
I have a dream.
Wood and Custard say they want exactly what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted.
They will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
It wasn't a plan that we cooked up. It was just an idea that was just rolling around in his mind and in mine.
They are portrayed as genial scholars, just two apolitical professors, an image Wood and Custard have worked hard to maintain.
I should begin by saying that neither Glenn Custard, my colleague on the project, or I are in any sense political animals.
But in fact, the two are key figures in a conservative organization, the National Association of Scholars. Funded primarily by conservative foundations, the group is hardly apolitical. It is very critical of many aspects of higher education, including black and women's studies, sexual harassment policies, the emphasis on racial diversity, and affirmative action. Tom Wood, who is actually not a professor at all, is the California affiliate's executive director. Glenn Custard, the affiliate's co-founder. They say they believe strongly that racism and bias should be dealt with simply by enforcing the anti-discrimination laws that are already on the books.
You level the playing field for women by simply saying that it's illegal to discriminate against them because of their sex.
As a result, they oppose giving a boost to women and minorities in employment and in access to education because, they claim, race and sex discrimination is no longer a major problem in America. Do either of you deny there is still widespread discrimination against women and minorities in the United States?
We don't deny that there are individual instances of discrimination. Our position is that it is a mistake to assume, as our opposition tends to do, that racists and sexists are everywhere.
What is the proof, really, that you have that they are being discriminated against? You see, this is...
What is the evidence that they are being
If you take a look at the growing middle class...
I need proof to you that blacks are being discriminated against in the United States?
On a widespread basis, yes.
You don't think it's happening?
I don't think that you're finding racial discrimination as widespread as some people claim. And the question is, if it is widespread, where is it? Where's the proof?
Nothing can be proved just on the basis of anecdotal evidence. You actually need to look at statistics.
We looked, and despite the progress over the past 3 decades, we found in study after study evidence that suggests discrimination against women, blacks, and other minorities is still widespread. For example, a federal bipartisan commission initiated by Senator Bob Dole reported last year that 95% of all top corporate managers are white men, and that stereotyping, prejudice, and bias are major factors keeping women and minorities from those positions. But when it comes to hard numbers on reverse discrimination, something Wood and Custard claim is very common, they come up empty-handed. How much reverse discrimination against white males goes on these days?
Well, I don't think that there are studies that give body counts.
That could be because 3 separate studies of reverse discrimination indicate that while it certainly does exist, it is a very small problem when compared with discrimination against women and minorities. But Wood calls the most recent and most highly quoted of these studies unsound and intellectually dishonest. We spoke to more than 15 conservative think tanks and academics around the country. Many told us reverse discrimination is difficult to prove, and in fact, no one could produce any broad-based scientific studies that prove or even suggest that reverse discrimination is widespread. In the debate over affirmative action, hard facts often take a back seat to catchy anecdotes. Just listen to a few that Tom Wood and Glenn Custard tell.
Tulane University has recently announced a policy of explicitly setting aside half of its teaching positions for women and minorities. They have a stated policy, a fixed quota system.
In fact, because the Tulane faculty is still overwhelmingly white male, The school announced last spring a plan to set up a special fund for recruiting women and minorities. The plan was controversial, and some critics called it a quota system. But the school says there were absolutely never any quotas.
For example, there was a man who was promoted beyond his experience to the rank of lieutenant, and he was killed. He was killed in a fire, and the reason was that he was beyond his experience there. This is something that everyone knows.
Not true. Glenn Custard tells this anecdote about the only black San Francisco firefighter to die in the line of duty. Jerry Butler died 2.5 years ago after being hit with a blast of superheated steam, air, and gases, which also injured 8 other firefighters. While Butler may have benefited from affirmative action, fire department officials told Dateline his death had nothing to do with his level of experience or with affirmative action. And none of the 3 investigations of the incident attributed the firefighter's death to inexperience or to his own mistakes. And Custard also likes to complain about what's called a consent decree, a federal court order that requires San Francisco's fire department to hire and promote more minorities and women because of years of discrimination. Custard says the fire department has already done more than enough.
And they have far surpassed the levels required by the consent decree, far and away.
He's wrong again. In fact, the federal court ruled last June that after 7 years, the fire department, though it made progress, had failed to meet some goals, and that discrimination still continued. Even the city concedes its fire department has fallen short. Tom Wood has often told an anecdote about himself, that he was a victim of reverse discrimination while looking for a teaching job in the Bay Area in the late 1980s.
I ran into a member of the search committee before I had even had time to apply for the position, shortly after it was advertised. And we got to talking, and at the end of it, he said, it sounds to me that you'd probably waltz into this job if you were the right race, sex, or ethnicity.
We wanted to check out Wood's story, so we asked him to name the school where this reverse discrimination occurred. He wouldn't say.
I don't want to do that because I don't want to personalize the issue.
Tom Wood.
But Dateline looked into the story that's been told repeatedly by this leading spokesman on reverse discrimination. While his resume describes him as an active scholar, Tom Wood hadn't published anything until 15 years after he received his Ph.D. in philosophy at the University of California at Berkeley. And in the 20 years since that Ph.D., Wood has held only 2 university teaching positions, each 1-year appointments. He taught part-time at this psychology institute for a few years, earning $1,200 a course. He worked at this bank in San Francisco and did word processing for this company. And one more thing. Although Tom Wood did eventually publish these 3 books, he has still never held a permanent college teaching position. You didn't publish anything for 15 years after you got your Ph.D. Mm-hmm. On the basis of what do you think you could have waltzed into that job?
Well, I think that an answer can be, well, waltz into the job, I don't know. Whether I was I think I had reasons for thinking that I was well qualified for that job.
Isn't it possible that based on your resume, you just weren't qualified enough to get the job? And that the
I've never denied that. I've never denied that.
The person who did get the job was more qualified?
I've never denied that. The point, I was asked, do you feel that you have ever experienced reverse discrimination? So the answer has to be yes.
Tom Wood told us the job was advertised in Jobs for Philosophers, published by the American Philosophical Association. So we went to the APA's office in Delaware and looked at old issues. We found 5 philosophy positions at Bay Area universities that Wood might have applied for. Of those 5, 4 went to white men. The 5th went to this woman, who was, by almost any standard, more qualified for the position than Tom Wood.
She was already known before she received her Ph.D. as somebody who would be a very promising scholar.
Anita Silvers, an officer of the APA and a longtime philosophy professor at San Francisco State, was on the committee that hired the woman. Although she's been disabled since she had polio as a child, Silvers says she has never benefited from any affirmative action program.
Tom Wood was in competition with white males. For most of the jobs he applied for, he didn't get those jobs because he wasn't as well qualified, not because he was discriminated against.
Could he have waltzed into any job at a university?
He would have had to be somebody who had already started publishing while he was doing his PhD.
Based on how those jobs went that year, white men did pretty well. I mean, you didn't get hired, but a lot of other ones did.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that you're looking at a very, very narrow spectrum. You're not looking at all philosophy job openings in California or nationwide.
But remember, this is the same man who told us
nothing can be proved just on the basis of anecdotal evidence. You actually need to look at statistics.
And the statistics tell a very different story. Nationwide, less than 5% of all philosophy PhDs are minorities. And statistics, not catchy anecdotes, show it is still easier for male philosophy professors to get hired, tenured, and promoted than it is for women.
Sounds to me as if somebody was saying to him in a consoling way, well, you know you're having a hard time getting a job because you're a white male. If that did happen, he ought to name the job and give us the opportunity to find out what the facts are.
While the details of Tom Wood's job search may seem trivial, the story appears to be part of a pattern in which two men who demand statistics and hard facts from their political opponents offer few in return. But in a time when saying something loud enough and often enough can make it seem true, facts may not be as important as the images the stories leave behind.
Tom Wood and Glenn Custard say that if their initiative passes in November, the state of California could still grant preferences for economic and educational disadvantages, but not on the basis of gender, race, or ethnicity.
Tonight, Super Bowl week continues when Jay's darn cat goes from super cool to super cat. Then Tracy Ullman shows Jay some new moves.
Hey, what are you dancing?
Plus, Jeff Foxworthy, Bonnie Raitt, and breaking news from around the world. Then on an all-new Conan, Robin Leach tonight.
Good evening, I'm John Stair. Tonight at 11 o'clock, a dramatic end to the standoff at an East Side Holiday Inn tonight after one of the suspects jumps to his death. We'll bring you the latest at 11 o'clock. Plus, if you traveled on I-70 East tonight, you probably sat in traffic for quite some time. We'll tell you what was wrong. And cinnamon gum and candy may look and taste harmless, but too much of it could be harmful to your health. You'll learn why. Plus, we'll have IU Michigan and Pacers Suns highlights only at 11 on Eyewitness News.
Noble Romans, try the great new menu. What a menu, Noble Romans. Try the great new menu. What a choice in Noble Romans. Noble Romans.
You know, the way things are going, I think we need another phone line.
Am I missing something, Fred?
Well, not now. I mean on Saturdays. Everybody calls on Saturdays.
Well, how can we afford an extra line for just one day?
Get a Meritech Flex Line, the lower-cost extra line for when your business gets busy. Order Flex Line now and get free installation.
Well, there's got to be a way.
Ameritech, your link to better communication.
As long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Nothing melts away the cold like a delicious hot bowl of Campbell's soup.
Let it snow, let it snow. Campbell's makes everything better.
Ever wish you had a nickel for every time you bought? We got a Visa for you. Introducing the new Target Rewards Visa. It turns everything you buy into rebates good at Target. And since it's a Visa, it's welcomed at millions of places worldwide. You can use it everywhere you shop to get everything you need. So if you want to be rewarded for everything you buy, use the Target Rewards Visa. To apply, look for this application at any Target store or call 1-800-501-5900.
And lighter with coverage you can count on. Weeknights on